Hello, Seiiti Arata. It is a very scary thing that there are moments you believe you cannot trust your brain anymore. Sometimes you're in the middle of a conversation and you just can't find the words. Your mind goes blank. But this blank moment does not mean that your memory is failing you or that you're getting senile. So, what I want to give to you at the end of this conversation is that I promise you will understand that you can strengthen your memory by doing a special practice. And this practice involves explaining topics out loud. It's not getting crazy talking to yourself, it's something different that in neuroscience we call free recall. And free recall is not easy. It requires mental effort, but it trains your brain to remember better. Recognizing words on a page creates an illusion of knowledge, but it does not train your brain to retrieve words during a conversation. The reason I'm saying this is because I know that when we want to protect our mind from aging, many people go and download apps for training your brain, or they try to incorporate reading more into daily routine. We believe that these mental activities will automatically help us to better remember words or concepts or conversations, but that strategy fails. Neuroscience shows that training the brain is something very specific. So when you're using an app to solve puzzles every day, you're gonna get really good at solving puzzles. That doesn't magically make you good at, I don't know, speaking languages. It just makes you good solving puzzles. Solving puzzles and speaking languages, they're two different activities. So in a similar way, when you read a lot of very interesting books, you're training your ability to read and understand. That's why you can understand the book perfectly, but the moment you close the book and I ask you, please explain it to me, you can't. Because explaining is a different activity. Reading silently and doing puzzles only require you to recognize the answers. And this passive approach trains your brain for a conversation. And during a conversation at a dinner table, your brain has to recall information and has to say it out loud. And you can train this ability right now explaining ideas out loud. And this active practice helps you strengthen the connections that you need to speak clearly. You forget your words because you're relying on passively recognizing things. If you want to speak clearly, you must force your brain to produce information from scratch. A perfect example of this is the problem when you finish reading a very interesting book and then a friend of yours say, okay, what did you read? Tell me, and you can't. Why does it fail? It's because the book author did all the intellectual work. He wrote the book. You only had to read it, you see? You only had to take a look at the words that were already chosen and just understand it. It feels like you have a mastery of the material because recognizing it's so much easier than trying to produce or retrieve from memory. You tell me the last time you read a great book. Now, explain it to me. Your mind will go blank because the author is no longer here. Without the physical book to guide you, your brain has to be searching, finding, choosing, rebuilding sentences in real life. Now, reading passively, silently is very easy. If you want to stop forgetting your words, you have to be forcing your brain to create, to produce information from scratch. Explaining ideas out loud will protect your memory because it forces your brain to produce information from scratch instead of just recognizing it. To protect your brain, to protect your memory, and slow down the cognitive aging of your brain getting old, the moment you finish reading something new, you have to act as a teacher and explain that concept to an empty room, to your own hand, to a flower. When you finish reading a chapter, when you finish watching a documentary, you have to pause and change your mental job. You have to be explaining that concept out loud. That's the activity. The goal is to speak using complete sentences, exactly as if you would be teaching that to a friend, doing a lecture. That's how you practice free recall. Your brain has to search for the concept, it selects the right vocabulary, it makes your mouth move to speak. And this process will practice the exact sequence that you need in real life, in a real conversation. As you build this habit, you will encounter moments when you cannot remember the information you need. It's difficult. Instead of you just quitting and say, okay, let me take a look at the book to see what is the answer, just wait 10 seconds. Make your brain really search for the answer. Okay, after 10 seconds, if you still fail, you get the book and then you get the real answer. Then you close the book again and you try to explain again. Building a brain with many connections, that's what helps explaining why some people with Alzheimer never showed symptoms in their entire lives. Remember that I told you that free recall is not easy. Well, that's exactly the reason why it is so important. The intense effort, it will build the brain with lots of connections. And what do I mean with that? With lots of connections. Every time you're forcing yourself to pull a word from memory instead of reading it on a page, your brain is physically building a brand new route to find that word, that concept again. And this is what protects your memory as you age. In fact, medical researchers have found that there were some people with severe brain damage from Alzheimer, but they never showed symptoms of memory loss. How come is that? Because their intense mental activities built lots of connections. Think of this as a complex city road network. Instead of relying on just one big avenue, one highway, that can be easily blocked due to age or disease, they have multiple side streets. If one primary connection fails, there are so many other connections that doesn't matter. Your brain can instantly find other ways to reach the information that you need. That's why you need to have multiple connections. And for you to do that, to keep your mind sharp enough to master complex new topics and protect yourself from becoming a dependent burden on others, I invite you to visit the link arata.se/savebrain so you can build a brain with multiple connections in a way that words will never escape you mid-sentence again. It is a good thing when you struggle to remember a concept, to remember a word, because that mental exercise, that mental effort is exactly what forces your brain to build a stronger memory. When you are there trying to explain concepts out loud to an empty room for the first time, it's not easy. You will stutter. You will struggle to remember the exact words. But this really intense mental effort signals your body to strengthen that connection. It makes the word easier to be remembered next time. So the next time you forget a word mid-sentence, you can let that uncomfortable silence and then keep trying. That feeling of mental friction is exactly what builds connections in your brain. Many people quit that type of activity because they say free recall is very uncomfortable. It's very difficult trying to remember those things. You might interpret this mental friction as a bad sign, but the active struggle to speak, it tells your nervous system that finding the concept, finding a way to express yourself, this is so important, and then your brain will physically reinforce that connection with myelin. Passive reading never triggers this type of reinforcement in your brain because there is no urgency. This intense effort is exactly what builds a brain with multiple connections. It cures your mid-sentence panic. Every time you force yourself to recall a concept, to explain something, you're protecting your mind against cognitive decline. You are ensuring that the next time you're at a meeting, at the gathering of your friends. You explain your ideas in a smooth way. You never forget what you actually wanted to say. You can train your brain to remember words faster by explaining ideas, complex ideas out loud to an empty room. This intense effort will build the brain with so many connections that that's going to be the difference to protect your memory. To start building a brain with many connections today, I invite you, visit the link arata.se/save brain and apply this to keep your mind sharp, sharp enough to master complex new topics and protect yourself from forgetting important things.